My boss sent me to deliver a luxury bag to a hotel room downtown. I should have known something was off, but I went anyway. And what I saw through that door, I never forgot it. Chapter 1: The Company. I joined Hargrove Solutions about 8 months after graduating college. Not a huge corporation, maybe 60 people total, but the salary was decent, the benefits were solid, and for a first job out of school, I wasn't complaining. What I didn't know going in was that the company was essentially a family operation. Richard Hargrove, CEO, founder, the man whose name was on the building, ran things with his younger brother as VP and his wife Christine holding a director title she'd never actually earned.
First thing you need to understand about this place, Jake told me on my second week, sliding into the chair across from my desk. Richard's family doesn't work here. They reign here.
What do you mean?
I mean, when Christine calls and asks you to pick up her dry cleaning on your lunch break, you pick up her dry cleaning. When Richard's brother needs someone to drive him to the airport at 6 in the morning, you volunteer. You smile, you say yes, and you remember it later.
Remember it for what?
For when you need something. This place runs on favors. The people who figure that out early last a long time. The ones who push back, he shrugged. They don't.
I nodded. I was new. I wanted to make a good impression. So I said yes to everything. Chapter 2: The Errands. It started small. Picking up coffee orders, dropping off packages, staying late to handle things that weren't technically my job. Then it escalated. One Saturday morning, Richard called me at 8 a.m.
Marcus, I need you to drive something down to my place in the Hamptons. Personal item. Can you handle that?
Today?
Today. I'll text you the address. You'll be back by evening.
What's the item?
Homemade whiskey. Family recipe. Just make sure it gets there in one piece.
4 hours, round trip. On a Saturday. For a bottle of whiskey. I went. When I got back, Jake was waiting by my car.
Hamptons Run?
Yeah,
What'd he send you with?
whiskey.
Homemade?
Yeah.
He sends someone new with that every year. It's a test. You passed. He clapped me on the shoulder. Welcome to the inner circle, man. For whatever that's worth.
Is it worth anything?
Depends on whether you're willing to keep saying yes.
I was. For a while. Chapter 3: The Hotel. 3 months in, Richard called me into his office.
I need a favor. Sensitive.
Of course.
There's a bag in my house. A gift. I need it delivered to the Meridian Hotel downtown, room 1408. Tonight, before 7.
I can do that.
Discreet, Marcus. You drop it off, you leave. No small talk.
Understood. The bag was a large luxury shopping bag, the kind with the thick rope handles and the embossed logo. I didn't look inside. Wasn't my business. I drove to the Meridian, took the elevator to the 14th floor, found room 1408. Knocked twice. The door opened. A woman stood there in a hotel bathrobe, hair loose, glass of champagne in hand, mid-20s. She looked past me at the bag and her face lit up. Oh my God, finally! Is that the Chanel? She grabbed the bag without waiting for an answer, pulled it open right there in the doorway. Opa, she called back into the room. It's here! The bag is here! Richard appeared from behind her. Dress shirt open at the collar, glass of bourbon in hand. He looked at me the way you look at a piece of furniture that's ended up in the wrong room. Leave it, he said. Get out. The woman was already holding the bag up, laughing, turning it over in her hands. It's perfect. You always know exactly what I want. She kissed him on the cheek. He was still looking at me. I said get out. I left. Standing in the elevator on the way down, I stared at my own reflection in the polished doors. I'd driven across the city to deliver a $5,000 bag to my boss's mistress. And he'd looked at me like I was the problem. Chapter 4: The decision. I went out for drinks with Jake that night.
How'd the delivery go?
There was a woman in the room. Jake didn't look surprised.
Yeah, he's had someone on the side for about 2 years. Everyone in the building knows. Nobody says anything.
Does Christine know?
Christine? He thought about it. Hard to say. She's smart. She might be choosing not to know. Or she genuinely doesn't. He took a drink. Either way, not our problem.
He looked at me like I was garbage.
You showed up at an inconvenient moment. That's all that was.
I drove across the city for him on a Friday night,
I know.
and he looked at me like that.
Marcus. Jake leaned forward. I'm not going to tell you to do anything stupid, but I will say this. In this company, information is currency, and you just picked up something valuable. What you do with it is up to you.
I drove home and sat in my apartment for a long time, thinking. Chapter 5. Christine. Christine Hargrove came into the office maybe twice a week. She was in her early 40s, polished, the kind of woman who looked like she'd always been comfortable with money. Not flashy, just precise. Good clothes, understated jewelry, a way of moving through a room like she expected space to be made. I started paying attention. Every time she came in, I made sure I was nearby.
Marcus, right? The new one?
Yes, ma'am. Can I help you with anything?
I'm trying to find the Harrington file. Richard said it was in the East Conference Room, but I've looked twice.
I know exactly where it is. Let me get it for you.
Oh, thank you.
Small things, consistent. Every time she was in the building, I was the one who helped her find things, carried things, held doors, remembered how she took her coffee without being told twice. After 3 weeks, she started looking for me specifically.
Is Marcus in today?
I heard it from the receptionist and didn't let it show on my face. I was in. Chapter 6. The restaurant. I found the right moment on a Tuesday afternoon. She was in the building alone. Richard was in Chicago for meetings. I knocked on her office door. Mrs. Hargrove, do you have a minute?
Of course. Come in.
I closed the door behind me. I hope this isn't out of line. There's a restaurant that just opened downtown. The kind of place that's hard to get into, but I know someone. I thought of you immediately. The menu is exactly what you'd appreciate. She looked at me.
Are you asking me to dinner, Marcus?
I'm asking if you'd let me take you somewhere you'd enjoy. That's all. A pause. Long enough that I started to think I'd miscalculated. Then she smiled.
What time?
Chapter 7. Dinner. The restaurant was everything I'd promised. Corner table, low lighting, the kind of quiet that costs money. We had wine, we talked. She was sharper than I'd expected, more self-aware, more observant. She wasn't the passive executive wife I'd assumed.
Can I ask you something directly, Marcus?
Always.
Why me? You're young. You're clearly capable of doing better than running errands for my husband. So why are you sitting across from me right now?
Because I think you deserve someone who actually pays attention to you.
That's a very careful answer.
It's an honest one. She was quiet for a moment.
Richard is seeing someone. Has been for 2 years. I know you know. You delivered something for him once. I could tell from the way you looked at me the next day.
I didn't deny it. I wasn't sure if you knew.
I know everything that happens in that building. I just choose carefully what to respond to. She took a sip of wine. Why did that bother you enough to do something about it?
Because he looked at me like I was nothing. After I drove across the city for him.
And this is your response.
Part of it,
What's the other part?
I looked at her directly. Honestly, you're the most interesting person in that building, and I've thought that since the first day I saw you. She held my gaze for a long moment.
You're dangerous, Marcus.
I've been called worse. She laughed. Really laughed.
Check, please.
Chapter 8. The Hotel. We went to a hotel that night. Not the Meridian. somewhere better. She was different than I expected, less guarded, more present, like she'd been waiting for someone to actually show up for a long time. Afterward, she lay back against the pillows and looked at the ceiling.
I haven't felt like that in a very long time.
How long?
Longer than I want to admit.
He doesn't.
No, he doesn't. He hasn't in years. She turned to look at me. Is that what you needed to hear?
I wasn't looking for ammunition.
I know. That's why I said it.
We stayed until past midnight. When I dropped her at her car, she held my hand for a moment before getting out.
Same time next week?
I'll make a reservation. Chapter 9. The Gifts. It started with a watch. She left it on the nightstand after our third night together. A Rolex, still in the box, with a small card. For the man who pays attention. See? Christine, I can't accept this.
Why not?
It's too much.
Marcus, I buy Richard a watch every Christmas, and he doesn't even wear them. Let me do something for someone who actually appreciates it.
I appreciate you, not gifts.
I know that. That's exactly why I want to give them. She pushed the box toward me. Don't make it complicated.
I took the watch. After that, a wallet, a suit, shoes. She had taste, and she had money, and she seemed to genuinely enjoy it. I let her. Richard started getting suspicious around the 2-month mark. He called me into his office one afternoon.
Marcus, I need you to keep an eye on my wife. She seems distracted lately, meeting people. I want to know what's going on.
I kept my face completely neutral. Of course, I'll let you know if I notice anything.
Good man.
I walked out of his office. Jake caught me in the hallway.
What did he want?
He wants me to spy on his wife. Jake stared at me.
Marcus,
I know.
how deep are you in this?
Deep enough that I should probably start updating my resume.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Chapter 10. The Exit. I resigned 2 weeks later. Christine was the first person I told.
Why? What happened?
Richard asked me to investigate you. I'm not going to do that. And staying isn't smart anymore.
Where will you go?
I have some options. I'll take some time and look around properly.
Money?
I'm fine.
Marcus. She reached across the table and took my hand. Let me help. While you're looking. No strings.
Christine,
You walked into my husband's mess and you handled yourself with more class than anyone in that building. The least I can do is make sure you land somewhere good. She squeezed my hand. Let me.
I stayed for another month. We kept seeing each other. She gave me enough to transition comfortably. Pocket money, a few more gifts, a recommendation letter from a contact who didn't know Richard. When Richard eventually confronted her about seeing someone, she looked him dead in the eye and told him that if he wanted to discuss outside relationships, they could start with the woman at the Meridian Hotel and the Chanel bag. He never brought it up again. I took a position at a firm across the city. Better title, better pay, no family dynasties. On my last day seeing Christine, she handed me an envelope.
For the new chapter.
I don't need...
I know you don't need it. Take it anyway. She kissed me once. You were exactly what I needed, Marcus. I hope you find everything you're looking for.
You too. I changed my number a few weeks after that. She called once from a different line. I didn't answer. I felt something like guilt about that, but not enough to call back. She'd gotten something real out of it. So had I. And Richard Hargrove had delivered his own punishment. He just didn't know it yet. That's where this story ends. Thank you for listening. If this one stayed with you, subscribe, leave a like, and turn on notifications. See you in the next one.